Paranormal Activity is back with the newest film, Next of Kin, on Paramount Plus. So it's time to rank all 7 Paranormal Activity films from worst to best. Welcome, movie watchers. Thank you guys for stopping by my channel. Today we're going to talk about all 7 of the Paranormal Activity films and rank them from worst to best, including the newest one, Next of Kin, on Paramount Plus. Let me know in the comment section down below, how would you rank all 7 of these films? Coming in last place is Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. This one answered a lot of questions from the marked ones, how they are able to transport themselves from different times in the movies. We saw at the end of marked ones where he was in the beginning of the first Paranormal Activity film. We get a lot of that in here, and we get a lot of Toby. The most amount we've ever seen Toby. We get to see like his form. He's massive. It's terrifying at first. But they used him so much, there was a point in the movie where he did not become terrifying, to the point where it lost its effect, and I really just could not care about Toby. There's a lot of cheap thrills in here. It's not as suspenseful or terrifying as that first Paranormal Activity film, or even some of the better ones like 3 and 2. It just feels very weak and very stretched out with how they are trying to connect this story about this young girl named Leela and to Katie and Christy, and building off of that movie. It just feels really thin and pretty pointless at times. Coming in at number 6 is Paranormal Activity, The Next of Kin. While I do appreciate the story, I think the story is very creepy with exploring Margot and this Amish community. There's some really terrifying things within this movie. They don't utilize the story very well. There's a lot of wasted moments when it comes to potential jump scares that really could be terrifying. It just does not work at all. Margot is one of the least likable characters in the Paranormal Activity franchise. Her completely disregarding their wishes, filming when they ask her not to, just makes her a very frustrating character. And it just feels so different from the other ones. It tries to be flashy at times. It really takes you out of those really big paranormal scenes, and it's more focused on having these cool camera techniques like slow-mo and these drone shots that really feel unnecessary. I do appreciate the story, but it wasn't executed very well. Coming in at number 5 is Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones. This one was the first spin-off of Paranormal Activity, and there was parts that worked and parts that didn't work for me. It's a little less on the scares and exploring this young boy who's starting to develop these powers. He's becoming a marked one. There's some secrecy about this woman who lives below him. And so I do like the kind of mystery behind the movie. These young teenagers that have started to graduate high school, one of them has these powers, and they do things that any average teenager would do if they come into these abilities. And so it does provide some humor in it, but I don't need too much humor in a Paranormal Activity film. So at times it's trading in for the scares for some humor, and it just does not work. It ends, though, in a way that just completely left me confused on what was happening, giving us more questions than answering some about what is a marked one. If they didn't have the ghost dimension, I would be absolutely confused with this film. So Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, I did like some parts of it. There was a pretty solid ending, but the humor that's mixed throughout just really takes me out of it. Coming in 4th place is Paranormal Activity 4. I like Paranormal Activity 4. I think the young kid that plays Robbie, who's supposedly adopted by Katie, is a creepy kid. And he's friends with Toby, and we see that Toby is requesting something of Robbie, and we see Katie quite often, who's still very terrifying within the movies. And so we have some more camera techniques, a lot of webcam, and a lot of the chimes for the house opening and closing. So there's different techniques with this movie. It feels more modern compared to the other Paranormal Activity films, but there is some pretty decent scares utilizing those things like the Xbox Connect and the webcam and keeping it on at nighttime. It makes sure to not feel gimmicky at all. And though it's an odd thing to bring into the Paranormal Activity films, they make sure to capture scares within that, and little things that you see are terrifying. The last scene of this movie, though, I feel like they haven't really answered it too much. Kind of just left you wondering what is going on and just, scratching your head. But it also has a really terrifying sequence with Katie at the end of the movie. So Paranormal Activity 4 offered some new techniques when it came to presenting Toby into the movie, and it was just a lot of fun. Coming in at number 3 is Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity, I remember when it first came out and it was all the craze. I honestly thought for the longest time it was real. Like, this was like a documentary of some sort. I saw it in theaters, and I actually seen all the Paranormal Activity films in theaters, but this one was huge. I saw it in high school, and everybody was talking about this film. And it deserves to be talked about. It is a clever film with a lot of decent jump scares, a lot of quiet moments, and just loud moments that shock you to your core. And an ending that a lot of people probably didn't see coming. And so Paranormal Activity, with its limited budget and just having it be a really simple horror film in one house, a man recording it, they utilized every scene to their advantage. So the first film had a really good impression, and everything else was kind of built on that. But Micah and Katie in this film, especially Katie, ended up being very creepy in the franchise. But I really liked Micah as a character. But with the first film, it was really enjoyable and scary at some points. Coming in at number 2 is Paranormal Activity 2. While I do prefer Paranormal Activity 2 to Paranormal Activity 1, the main reason for it is that there's a baby involved. And it makes all of the moments have this sense of urgency, because this baby is there and you just don't want it to get hurt. You want little baby Hunter to be harmed. And so all the moments involving the activity in the house is really suspenseful. There's some really loud moments within this movie. It really amps up the scares from the first film, making scenes just feel really big and loud, and that continued quiet scenes and utilizing those are very strong within this movie. There is some creepy moments coming from the sister in here from the first film, still building off of that first film, continuing it, giving us some answers that we had from that first film. But this time around, there's just more scares and more of a connection to these characters, and you are feeling some of that emotion from this family, having a newborn in the house, an older sister. There's just a sense of urgency that flows throughout this movie very nicely, and ends with a really shocking ending to the movie, and then continuing with Paranormal Activity 3. Coming in first place is Paranormal Activity 3. I've always appreciated how Paranormal Activity 3 was different than the first two films, exploring the youth of Christy and Katie was really suspenseful. There was a lot of thrills within this movie, especially because Toby seemed like a main character within this film. There was plenty of times that he had this connection with the girls, and plenty of times he seemed like a big threat in the movie. We have a few mentions of him in the previous two films, but he's in full force within this movie. And there's some really scary moments, especially coming towards the end of the film. This has by far the best ending to any of the Paranormal Activity films. But the two young girls who play Christy and Katie also do a great job of making their roles very believable, being absolutely terrified of this presence. Everything they say about Toby is just downright creepy. And we have this like stepfather who is wanting to film everything at the house. He does wedding videos, and so we have a reason why he is filming things, because he likes cameras. And he's a really nice guy, and so it's nice to see someone that's actually concerned with what is going on in the house, and there's actually more than one person in the house that is concerned with everything going on. I like how they kind of had a fresh spin on the franchise while still connecting it to the first two films, really building on the lore of the Paranormal Activity films while giving us something new, but also really terrifying. So there you guys have it, all 7 Paranormal Activity films ranked worst to best. How would you rank all 7 of them? Let me know in the comment section down below, and stay tuned for more up and coming ranking videos like this. My name is Just As Much As Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.